So I'm glad to introduce the person who is opening this seminar. Please welcome Oda Sletnes, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Norway to the EU. She is an architect of profession and is former president of EFTA Surveillance Authority. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that nice introduction. I haven't heard that many references to my education, which dates some years back, I have to admit. But yes, it's true. I am a trained architect, and I take great pleasure in designing a couple of houses, but not very many. Okay, thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you today. Thank you very much for the nice film, the optimism and the good music. I hope that that is the tune that you can continue to sing to in the region, and also will set the tone for the further discussions in this house. Norway House is indeed a great venue to have people from different institutions in Brussels. I'm happy to see the European Parliament in particular, the Russian mission to the European Union, and of course all of you that, and the EAS I think I noticed, but also private and public sector representatives from Brussels as well as from the region itself. I am happy to say at the outset today that we all consider the Barents Cooperation a success story. For many decades, as all of you know, what is now known as the Barents region was divided by Cold War borders. There wasn't anything which actually was called the Barents region, it was a sea. So the term the Barents region didn't exist. It was not meaningful to speak of the region as one. But now we speak of the Barents region, both in Brussels and in Europe, and in Norway and Russia, without hesitating. That's very good. And this is indeed the result of hard work across borders, between peoples, through more than 20 years, and I think we all can say it has contributed to foster trust and prosperity of the region. The Barents Cooperation has also proved to be robust in a more tense and challenging political climate, and it is indeed important to keep all channels open for this type of people-to-people contract, and that is not the least thanks to the very constructive approach of all the members of the Barents Euro-Arctic Council. So through the Barents Cooperation, we have succeeded, or you have succeeded, because I think it should be to the praise of those that have contributed actively, to build networks of ties at many different levels all across the Barents region between national and regional authorities, business people, scientists, students, and not least, as I said, between the people who live in the region. That is the most important. So, as it is recalled here in this little film, the Barents Cooperation started in 1993 under kind of a different with a different, what can I say, heaven over it, but with a clear will to establish a Barents Euro-Arctic Council and a Barents Regional Council. And this double structure, which was very new at the time, has secured both regional ownership and political attention, also at national level, but certainly also locally and regionally. The substance of the Barents Cooperation is generated by the many working groups. These working groups operate at regional or national level, and some of them also cooperate closely with relevant working groups under the Arctic Council, of course, and under the councils, the Council of Baltic Sea State Cooperation, and particularly with the Northern Dimension Partnership, which has some interesting and overlapping responsibilities from the European side. However, neither the number of Barents working groups nor the mandates are set in stone, and I believe that we should open to development and finding a balance between continuity and renewal. It should be, of course, open to developments of the agenda in general. Russia has shared the Barents Euro-Arctic Cooperation since October last year, and the three priorities chosen by the chair promised to secure continuity and progress in important areas, which we all share: transport, environment and climate, culture and tourism. Norway looks forward to further cooperation in these and other areas. We need to continue our efforts to improve east-west transport, eliminate environmental hotspots, and combat climate change. That is in our common interest, indeed. We also welcome the focus on culture and tourism. We also the potential for the further development of cultural tourism and ecotourism. I'm very happy to say that I have very good memories for travels to that region, both during summer and winter. And of course, one should draw on the culture and traditional knowledge of the region's indigenous peoples, including secure, of course, the infrastructure. The indigenous peoples are an important resource in the Barents region. We look forward to the planned Indigenous Summit, which should increase understanding of indigenous peoples' legitimate rights. The working group of indigenous people is doing very important work, and we are pleased that since last year its financing has been secured. People-to-people contacts and a flourishing civil society are indeed essential for economic and social development of the Barents regions, as of other parts of Europe, of course. We must therefore encourage civil society organizations to engage in cross-border cooperation. And to this end, I'm happy to say that the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs provides funding, it's roughly 5 million euro annually, to the Norwegian Barents Secretariat, and the Secretariat in turn provides grants for projects between Norwegian and Russian project partners, which can involve Swedish and Finnish partners as well. People-to-people contacts are also facilitated by the Norwegian-Russian border traffic regime. It allows border residents to obtain a permit for visa-free cross-border travel within the border zone. In January this year, Norway and Russia signed a protocol on extension of the border area on the Norwegian side to include the whole village of Neiden. In addition, the ongoing upgrading of the road between Kirkenes to Murmansk on both sides of the border is making travel quicker and safer. Both Norway and Russia are also planning to improve their facilities at the border crossing point. The Barents Cooperation has many qualities. It has value in itself as a political process, building trust and greater understanding. It delivers tangible results in a variety of fields through expert cooperation in the working groups. And it enriches the lives of people in the Barents region, as we saw examples of here, by supporting people-to-people contact and civil society networking at all age level, if I may say so. The Barents Cooperation enjoys broad support in Norway, and the Norwegian government is strongly committed to maintain this unique forum for regional cooperation in the North. So it's with a particular pleasure that I see you all here today, and that we also can bring some attention to this success story in Brussels. I think it is indeed well deserved. So I wish you all the best for a successful seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your nice presentation. And now I invite to the stage a very experienced Russian diplomat, Karen Malayan. He's the Deputy Permanent Representative in charge of Economic Affairs and Regional Cooperation within the Russian Permanent Mission to the European Union. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, it is an honor and a pleasure to me to be here with you on the initiative of the Norwegian Barents Secretariat and the North Norway European Office in the framework of the chairmanship of the Russian Federation in the Barents Euro-Arctic Council. I would like to start by taking a personal note and using this opportunity to pay tribute to one of my distinguished colleagues and a teacher, a well-known Russian diplomat, Ambassador Yuri Fokin, who was instrumental in launching the Barents cooperation process from the Russian side. First as director of the European Department at the Russian MFA in 1992-1993, when the Kirkenes Declaration was prepared and signed, and then as a Russian ambassador to Norway. He also later was ambassador to UK and the principal of the Russian Diplomatic Academy. He passed away a couple of months ago. But throughout his professional life and work, he has always been a strong advocate and, I would say personally, passionate about the benefits and synergy of the joint efforts of the Barents process member states and regions. Like in almost every Russian family who suffered during the World War II, he lost his father. And I think, in my opinion, that made him a strong believer in the Barents cooperation format as a unique cross-border platform to bring the people of the north of Europe together. In his book, The Kirkenes Declaration on the Cooperation in the Barents-Eurasian Region, a view from Russia 20 years on, that he co-written with the first Consul General from Russia to Kirkenes, Anatoly Smirnov, he wrote, and I quote, "In addition to various geographic and maritime dictionaries, the name of the great William Barents has entered the global political vocabulary as a synonym of mutually beneficial cooperation and good neighborhood." Indeed, regional cooperation remains an important channel of communications, and Ambassador Sletnes mentioned that with our North European partners in the challenging times in international relations that we're experiencing, allowing for a business-like and constructive discussion on regional issues. The Barents-Eurasian Council is one of the main formats of cooperation uniting Russia and North European countries over more than 20 years of its existence, and the Council has proven itself, in our opinion, an effective platform for intergovernmental cooperation encompassing all key areas of social life of the people who populate the region. In this respect, in my opinion, it is important to avoid any politicization of its work and keep it as an instrument that generates a unifying agenda and contributes to building an area of trust and stability in the region. The Barents cooperation is unique, and many of you who are aware of that would support that. In that sense, it has a regional dimension, and apart from the Barents-Eurasian Council, there are direct contacts between local administrative and territorial units of Russia, Finland, Norway, and Sweden in the framework of the Barents Region Council. This two-level cooperation makes it possible to identify the most vital cooperative projects and efficiently combine national strategic priorities with interests and needs in the regions. Since October 2015, the BRC is chaired by the Finnish province of Kainu, with which we have established close working relationship. The main goal of the Russian chairmanship of the Council is to further promote sustainable social and economic development of the Barents region, build modern infrastructure, enhance the region's competitiveness and investment attractiveness while making a rational use of its scientific, innovative and resources capabilities. Ultimately, it is improving the quality of life of those people who live here is the main goal of the Russian chairmanship. We will pursue this goal in full compliance with the regional environmental standards and take into account the interests of the indigenous people. Identifying our priorities for the BIAC chairmanship, we were guided both by, as Ambassador Sletnes again mentioned, by the principle of continuity and the understanding of today's problems of the region. That is why, as mentioned, we focus on the fields of transport and logistics, environmental and climate, as well as culture and tourism. This choice of priority areas fully reflects the needs of the region and is supported by other participants of the Barents cooperation. Each of them will be addressed at a respective ministerial meeting during our chairmanship. In our view, this approach highlights the practice and the result-oriented nature of the chairmanship that has started. Enhancing the transport system, the first priority, is a natural prerequisite for fostering interregional trade and economic relations. Modern infrastructure is key to implementation of large-scale projects creating state-of-the-art production facilities and generating new jobs. Development of new arterial roads in the north, including the use of the Northern Sea Route as the shortest shipping lane between Northern Europe and the Asia-Pacific region, will contribute to increasing volumes of trade and economic cooperation between BIAC member states that, for the time being, are still quite moderate. Actually, as you might well be aware, that William Barents, a neighbor, a Dutchman, was going on his exploratory mission in the north, seeking a new route to the west. But apparently he found himself in the east. And this may also have some political connotations today, that transport corridors are very important as long as you know where they lead you. Another objective on this track is adoption of the Joint Barents Transport Plan, which has been developed since 2013. The document envisages establishment of 16 efficient, safe and sustainable cross-border transportation routes or corridors, 7 of which will go through the territory of the Russian Federation, combining railways, motor roads and sea routes. Besides, there is an intention to develop east-west aviation routes in Northern Europe, in particular between Oulu, Luleå and Tromsø, in operation since spring 2015. Archangelsk, Murmansk, Tromsø, which was suspended unfortunately in autumn 2014. Archangelsk, Kirkenes, 2 test flights planned for 2017. And Syktyvkar, Kotlas, Arkhangelsk, in operation. Establishing regular ferry routes between northern Norway and Russian Arctic ports Murmansk and Arkhangelsk is another promising project. In autumn 2016, the Arctic Haven project, construction of a passenger seaport, related infrastructure and modernization of the port for reception of deep-water cruise ships should be completed to mark the 100th anniversary of Murmansk. In the work of the chairmanship on environmental agenda, which we consider crucial to the life and work of the people who populate the region, we focus on practical steps to further eliminate environmental hotspots in the Russian part of the Barents-Eurarctic region. By now, 9 out of 42 such hotspots that were identified by the BIAC and the Arctic Council have been eliminated in northwestern Russia, and we will continue to do this work. Protection of water resources, green technologies, and environmentally sustainable consumption, environmental education and development of a network of specially protected natural areas constitute another sphere of cooperation in the Barents region. Climate change is among the most acute problems, which has not only global but also a clear regional dimension, as it affects the traditional way of life and habitat of the people of the North. In this respect, we attach great importance to implementation of the Action Plan on Climate Change for the Barents Cooperation, adopted by the BIAC environmental ministers in December 2013 in Inari, Finland. Third priority, culture and tourism. We consider it as a humanitarian dimension of the Russian chairmanship program, an important element of developing people-to-people contacts. One of the main objectives is to finalize the work on modalities of the Barents Scholarship in Culture, so that the first one could be awarded in 2017-2018. We also plan to establish a platform for regular information exchange in the field of culture with other regional cooperation formats in Northern Europe. Implementation of tourist projects could also give an impetus to the development of Nordic regions through additional investment flow and new jobs. We're examining the possibility of a joint international project in the field of Arctic tourism with the following route: Kirkenes, Murmansk, the archipelago Franz Josef Land, the archipelago Nova Zemlya, and archipelago the Solovetsky Islands, and Arkhangelsk. The project can be launched as early as in 2017. So, as a native of St. Petersburg, I would say that people of the North definitely benefit from traveling around, meeting those who have similar character and endure the same climate. So I think it is very important that through personal contacts we do establish such links that then benefit in providing opportunities for trade and investment. I think one of the early slogans of the Barents region, as I recall from my earlier days, was from contacts to contracts. So I think while this may be a long route, but still it's an ambition that we should aspire to. An important step in this direction would be the expected decision to include Murmansk and Arkhangelsk in the list of ports where cruise ships can enter for a 72-hour stop with visa-free stay for their foreign passengers. We have a number of ports in Russia which benefit from this regime, and draft regulation of the government has been prepared by the Russian Ministry of Culture and in February this year submitted to the government for consideration. So hopefully we would also allow for this regime to be expanded and cover Murmansk and Arkhangelsk. The list of priority areas forming the agenda of the Russian chairmanship is naturally not exhaustive. Other fields include economic and business cooperation, development of economic ties, energy, research and education, healthcare, youth exchanges, cooperation in emergency prevention, readiness and response, as well as resumption of cooperation between the national customs services. The calendar of our chairmanship is full of events at various levels and in various thematic fields that cover basically all mentioned priorities and will be held mostly in the regions of the northwest of Russia. The chairmanship program includes 4 ministerial meetings. In November 2015, environmental ministers of the BIAC member states met in Sortavala in the Republic of Karelia. They achieved important results highlighting the practice-oriented nature of the Barents cooperation and its focus on specific needs of the regions and its population. In the coming days, basically next week, on 20 and 21st June, ministers of transport will meet in Arkhangelsk. In autumn, ministers of culture will hold a meeting in Moscow. And to crown the 2-year chairmanship, a ministerial session of the council will take place in Arkhangelsk in October 2017. Support of small-numbered indigenous people of the North is an important priority on the agenda of the Russian BIAC chairmanship. We pay great attention to the preservation of the indigenous environment and traditional ways of life of autochthonous people of the North and meeting their ethno-cultural needs. In this regard, the idea of holding a high-level event of the indigenous people of the Barents region, a summit that Ambassador Sletnes mentioned during the Russian BIAC chairmanship, with the support and participation of the Norwegian Barents Secretariat, is being discussed and high on the agenda of the Working Group on Indigenous Populations. This event is preliminarily scheduled to take place in Moscow in spring 2017. We also have to find a mechanism to further strengthen the synergy between the BIAC and other regional councils in Northern Europe. In this regard, I referred to, first of all, the Arctic Council, the Council of the Baltic Sea States, the Nordic Council of Ministers, and the Northern Dimension Partnership. Better coordinated efforts of multilateral cooperation formats in the North European region will allow for better use of advantages of each platform while maintaining their independence and identity. We keep open our proposal to resume coordination meetings of regional Nordic councils and Northern Dimension partnerships at the level of Deputy Ministers of Foreign Affairs. The idea that was set forth at the ministerial session of the BIAC member states in Oulu in October 2015. This meeting could be held in Russia in the framework of the Russian chairmanship of the BIAC, and we believe that it would foster multilateral cooperation in Northern Europe and help find new ideas on efficient division of labor between the relevant regional formats. To conclude, I would also like to quote again Ambassador Fokin from his book, who said that the key point is that the political climate should not be defined by the polar winds of the returning fear and mistrust of the Cold War times, but a warm Gulf Stream of the Barents process that, along with the national interests, puts at the heart interests of the common people of the North, including Russians, Norwegians, Sams, Finns, Swedes, and other ethnic population. And the last point that I would like to make is that today we have President of the European Commission who is participating in the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, and prior to coming here I was watching him on television, and I think one message that I picked up for myself as a diplomat working in Brussels was that talking about peace and prosperity of humanity, we must keep the door open for dialogue. And that requires goodwill and ambitions. And I think these words could apply to what the people in the Barents Council and those countries involved are trying to achieve through the cooperation in the Barents Arctic region. So thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing our work together with you under the Russian chairmanship and with the future chairmanships. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we arrived at the last speaker of this section. Lisa Jaakonsaari, a member of the European Parliament, as a representative of the Social Democratic Party. She's also the vice chair of the delegation to the EU-Russian Parliamentary Cooperation Committee. And you could say she knows the Barents region quite well, because she have also formerly been a city councillor of Oulu for more than 20 years. So please welcome.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for this excellent video clip we saw, and that reminds me that the weather in the Arctic area is always better than in Brussels. And that leads me to three quiz questions, and I'm sure that some knows, and I'm asking the audience, where is the northernmost place of the Europe? Lisa knows?
The European Union, northernmost.
European Union, yes, I first.
In Nuorgam.
Is it Nuorgam in Lapland? And my second question is, where is the northernmost place of Europe? I'm sure that Ambassador would know, but she left. It is in Gamvik in Finnmarken. And the third question is, who is the northernmost MP of the European Parliament? I am. So, it is really a great pleasure and honor to take part in this seminar on the parents' cooperation. It's wonderful to discuss this item because the current world situation does not look so bright and it is full of uncertainties. Next week there is the vote on Brexit. The outcome is very, very unclear, but whatever result, it will be a tight outcome and it can cause uncertainties. Then, after the end of this year, a new US president will be elected. This too will bring new challenges, I'm sure. And Europe is struggling with solidarity in the handling of migration. We have the unresolved conflicts in this world, Syria, Libya, and we are faced with unpredictable acts of terrorism nearly everywhere. In addition to all this, there are strained relations between Russia and the West. The level of trust is low, and we are somehow stuck in a cul-de-sac. This is why we need desperately to strengthen the cooperation in those areas that work. Most challenges of today's globalized world can only be solved by cooperation. That's why I welcome that the chairman of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, meets today President Putin in St. Petersburg. That shows good attitude, good approach that we have to have dialogue, though it is difficult today. The successful Barents cooperation is a bright light in this current darkness. It is a unique example of how good cooperation across borders functions. And what is the secret of this good cooperation? Ambassador mentioned this people-to-people contact. That's one of the most important things. But I think one of the secrets is that all parts involved in this cooperation are equal. This is important, particularly also for Russia, who wants to be a rule setter and not only rule taker, and quite rightly so. I think perhaps the EU might not have given enough attention to this need to feel an equal partner in its relations with Russia. Two, as Ambassador mentioned, the bottom-up approach that works. People-to-people cross-border cooperation in the northern part of Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia has proved itself a success. It has contributed to a better understanding of each other, with the result that there is a good basis for trust when it comes to conflict resolution. Indeed, the BARENTS practical cooperation has transformed this Cold War border region into an area where people and local economic actors interact with ease. That's long tradition. This spirit of cooperation has always prevailed in the North. I think one reason for that is the harsh natural circumstances. It forces you to cooperate rather than isolate each other. The northern spirit of cooperation has stimulated constructive processes such as BARENTS cooperation, the Northern Dimension Initiative, and over 40 years ago the Helsinki process, the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe, today OCSE. Such a process would be needed again for a renewed European security architecture. Next year, Finland is taking over the chair of the Arctic Council. The President of Finland, Mr. Sauli Niinistö, has already indicated that Finland will make all efforts to promote dialogue between Russia and the West in terms of Arctic policy. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union is still in the process of its own Arctic policy making. However, the process has been slow. The European Parliament has been active and pushing for greater coordination and a clear Arctic agenda. The recent joint communication is a step into the right direction. The paper is interesting also from the point of view of what has been left out. The Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, AFET Committee, has taken already the first steps to prepare a report on the Arctic policy by appointing rapporteurs. ALDE, the Liberals, will have the main rapporteur and the other political groups' shadow rapporteurs. I will be the shadow rapporteur for the S&D group. As the Commission's joint communication concentrates strongly on environmental issues, the Environment Committee, ENVI, asked for shared competences, so we might have a common report by both committees, AFET and ENVI Committee. The AFET Committee is an umbrella committee and the Arctic belongs to it. However, it is very good that so many committees will be involved in this work, because it is a kind of wake-up to the fact that their decision, like the decisions of the European Parliament, affect the people in the Arctic region. Therefore, I would hope that there will be some other committees contributing with their opinions too. It is really essential that EU keeps up its financial support for the regional cross-border cooperation and the Northern Dimension Partnership, of which the BARENTS cooperation is an important component, perhaps the most important component. We Nordics have to remind in the Parliament, in all these many occasions, that we are dealing with, when we are discussing Arctic, we are dealing with a populated region with a lively interaction of its citizens. It's no Antarctic, it's no man's land, it's a huge area of local people and indigenous people. Those local citizens and indigenous people want to be part of the decision-making process for policies that affect them and the regions. They too want to be rule setters, not only rule takers. The Commission paper speaks of a European Arctic Stakeholders Forum and of an inter-regional network. This is some kind of novelty of this communication. It is not yet exactly clear to me what concretely the Commission has in mind, but it seems that it aims to strengthen collaboration, investment and infrastructure building in the region with a stronger bottom-up approach. I think that the whole European Union should learn what can be learned from the BARENTS cooperation as an example of the best practice. This would mean strengthening this engagement on the regional level, so that local and indigenous interests, experience and know-how are involved in EU policy making. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we should all support the good cooperation that Europe and Russia have in the Arctic Barents region. We need to focus more on such issues of common interests in order to build up the much needed trust for interstate relations. I'm sure that today's program addresses important topics, and I'm sure that I can take with me a lot of good ideas for the Arctic policy report making. Thank you very much.
In our next session, we're going to hear about people-to-people cooperation, which is actually one of the key points in Barents cooperation. I would like to invite to the stage acting head of the Norwegian Barents Secretariat, Anne-Katrine Larsen. And Anne-Katrine Larsen is also working as the Assistant County Chief Executive of Finnmark County. The floor is yours.
Ja, den siste. Yes. Thank you. Tack. Kidos. Spasiba. Balshoi. Dear ambassadors, indigenous peoples, representatives, friends of the Barents region. On behalf of the Norwegian Barents Secretariat in Kirkenes, it is an honor to be present here in the EU capital to discuss the importance of the Barents cooperation with you. As we all know, the geopolitical situation after the Ukraine crisis has put a strain on the relationship between Russia and the West. Political cooperation on national level is reduced to a minimum with the introduction of sanctions on both sides. The idea of organizing this seminar was actually to show how people in the northern parts of Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia, despite of this, continue the extensive cross-border cooperation on various fields. It is therefore a pleasure for me, as one of the organizers, to see so many of you here today. Your presence shows that the Barents experience is relevant, not only to the countries in the Barents region, but also to Europe as a whole. For more than 20 years, enthusiasts have contributed to tear down stereotypes and prevented misunderstandings and potential conflicts in the region. The idea of making the High North a zone of peaceful cooperation was originally Mikhail Gorbachev's idea. He held his famous Murmansk speech in 1987 during the Cold War. The fact that he underlined the importance of keeping the Arctic peaceful became an important turning point for the region. When the Barents Euro-Arctic region was established in 1993, the geopolitical picture has changed radically. The Soviet Union was dissolved and Russia was included in the new regional cooperation together with the northernmost counties of Norway, Sweden and Finland. While other countries were divided or experienced bloody conflicts, the Barents Euro-Arctic region managed to cooperate peacefully, even though the region was of strategically and military importance to both Russia and NATO. No, det var inte den jag skulle ha nu. This is not the right picture, I think. Yes, maybe. We'll see. The Barents Cooperation represented a new approach to foreign policy. An army-to-army perspective was replaced by people-to-people cooperation. Local and regional governments were directly involved, as well as indigenous people in all the Barents countries. The idea was simple. When people meet and experience things together, they learn to respect and trust each other. Yes, the football players in this picture are actually a good illustration of the soft security idea. Athletes love competition. It is likely that some of these girls become politicians or business leaders in the future. They might meet again around a negotiation table. Experience shows that conflicts are less likely to occur when people have shared common experiences in the past, like these girls at the football field. A spirit of trust and friendly cooperation has paved the way for concrete historic results. I will mention a few from a Norwegian-Russian perspective. Before the Barents Cooperation was established, less than 8,000 people crossed the Norwegian-Russian border every day.
In 2015, there were more than 240,000 border crossings. The same development can be seen on the Finnish-Russian border. The delimitation agreement between Norway and Russia in the Barents Sea, signed in 2010, was a great accomplishment that showed the rest of the world that disputes can be solved peacefully and in accordance with international law. From 2012, people in the border zone on both sides of the Norwegian-Russian border can visit each other without visas. This was the first step towards visa freedom in the Barents region. As a result, citizens of Kirkenes are crossing the border to buy fuel, to go to the hairdresser, and having a good dinner in Nikel, the neighboring city on the Russian side. And the business community in Kirkenes is highly dependent on the Russian shoppers. This is an example of normalization and healthy neighborly relations. However, the Ukraine crisis has reduced political and military cooperation between Norway and Russia to a minimum on the national level. That makes the Barents cooperation even more relevant as an open window between Russia and Europe. Our goal is to link the situation before Crimea and the new normal situation between Russia and the West. And the Norwegian Barents Secretariat, which I am leading, is financing Norwegian-Russian projects on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Norway. The ministry has increased our funding this period as all parties in the Norwegian Parliament are considering the Barents cooperation of vital importance. We experience this goodwill on the Russian side as well. Mr. Lavrov came all the way to Oulu in Finland last year to underline the importance of people-to-people cooperation. The regional governors also stressed the importance of the Barents cooperation in their speeches. Despite the international situation, more than 36,000 people took part in the cooperation financed by the Norwegian Barents Secretariat last year. 30% of them were under 30 years old. That is a good sign for the future. In the Barents Secretariat, we experience victories every day. As a result of the Barents Youth Cooperation, Pechenga municipality is now establishing a youth council based on the Norwegian model for the first time. And the Norwegian environmental organization Nature and Youth has a sister organization in Murmansk that deals with environmental issues on the Kola Peninsula, one of the most industrialized areas in Russia. The young wrestler Signe here on the picture is from Tana, a tiny village in the northern Norway. She has just qualified for the Olympic Games. The Norwegian Barents Secretariat has funded the wrestling club in Tana for many years. As wrestling is a tiny sport in northern Norway, the cooperation with Russia has been essential. Thanks to partners in Murmansk, the Norwegian wrestler has been able to compete with professionals on the highest level. Barents Press International is a professional journalist network with branches in Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia. They meet every year to discuss important and challenging issues in the Barents region. They organize study trips and help each other with sources and stories. This is a great example of how Barents journalists tear down stereotypes and add nuance to the media picture. Culture is the area where the Barents Secretariat finances most projects and spends most funds. Barents Kult is a program established to realize professional art cooperation projects in the Barents region. Last week, more than 50 artists, researchers and writers from Norway, Russia, the EU and rest of the world met in Kirkenes for the Dark Ecology project. This project highlights different issues in the border zone between Norway and Russia, with focus on ecology and eco-criticism. The Norwegian Barents Secretariat will continue to support Youth Council establishments and other civil initiatives in the region. We will make sure the future leaders have the best possible tools to respect each other and international law. To stay relevant, the Barents countries must discuss challenging issues in the region. The Norwegian Barents Secretariat has initiated the Talking Barents, a debate forum where all stakeholders are invited to take part. The latter is of crucial importance, as we know that our common future is dependent on dialogue, mutual respect and understanding. I am looking forward to seeing it live later today. So thank you for your attention.
So the next speaker is from the high north, but unluckily he is also high in the sky at the moment in an airplane. So I think we will have a short coffee and refreshment break for 15 minutes, and then we will continue the program afterwards.